All right. Hey, Dave. All right. Sorry I'm a little late coming on, guys. I had some last minute stuff to take care of. All right. So hopefully, all right. So a little bit of good news at least here. My nephew moved the router downstairs, basically close to my room now. So hopefully, issues I've been having lately will settle down a little bit. Hopefully, so my computer's still lagging a little bit, so I'm still gonna have to probably have my computer guy come by and clean it out. But um, it does look like thus far that everything seems to be working all right. 2 minutes late. How dare? Yeah, I know, Dave, but it's kind of a rarity for me. You know, it's one of those things. I did my whole day was kind of a little off to begin with, but I try not to be late. You know that. Um, but I do thank you for the like and shares. That does help. Yeah. Well, the audio and video are good. Yeah. Well, hopefully it will be good now because, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, today my nephew moved the route. I guess they did. I guess they decided to move the router downstairs. Finally, the router is actually much closer to me now than it was before. So, um, which will most likely mean I won't have to go upstairs to stream if the signal starts because I don't, now the routers I think about the same distance now, maybe a little closer than it was when I'd go upstairs. So, all right. So, anyways, we're like a couple minutes in, so we're gonna wait at least to give some people some time to get in. So, how's your day going, Dave? I know you're the only other person here. It looks like thus far, and right now it looks like we have two people in here, and that's what it looks like I'm counting here. So, hoping now with the router down closer, of course, that should mean that everything should be hopefully a little more accurate. Let's just hope that that is the case. So I hope you had a good day today, Dave. Yeah. So my day was all over the place. I'm sleepy. Uh, yeah. I mean, my day was a little screwy too because when my while my nephew was while my nephew was fixing the router, dealing with the router. Of course, it did kind of screw up my schedule a little bit. I didn't even get a chance to watch my Toonami block yet, so I'll be watching my Toonami block and my Adult Swim block, pretty much back to back after we're done here. Yeah. All right. I mean, even though I didn't, really get to do much on the computer here. I did spend a good part of the day watching some of the nostalgia channels like Antenna TV and I watched some Walker Texas Ranger. I kind of watched them give me a break a little bit just because the other day I was watching match game Hollywood Squares Hour on Buzzer and saw Lori Hindler, and I was kind of wondering about her a little bit. Just um, Lori Handler, if you don't remember, she played the middle daughter Julie on "Give Me a Break," the show that starred Nell Carter back in the '80s. Now, the interesting note that would lead into more the animation side of it is the girl who played the youngest daughter, Samantha Kanitsky, on there, Lara Jill Miller, would later go on to be a number of do voice work in the 2000s. She was one of the Tachikomas on Ghost in the Shell, and then of course also was Coco on Zatch Bell, I believe. So that's pretty much my day. Good news: the rain stopped. Active sky. Azure skies today. Yeah, I know some parts of the country were getting. I know, I guess in the Midwest in particular, um, they had been, because I know Bat Goat also mentioned in Minnesota there had been raining earlier in the week too, and parts of last week. Of course, now you'll probably will start to get a little more rain anyways because yesterday was the official start of yesterday was the official first day of fall. So let's see, we're at 6:13. I gotta step away for a moment. I'll be right back. Looks like we have a third person here. Hello, third person. Hope you're having a good day today. Be right back. All right, I'm back. Let's see now. So, of course, as always, I do appreciate any and all likes and shares. That does help with the algorithm. Um, and we're back. Hey, toys. Lights go out. Sweet, slow, hot, and heavy music plays. The stage lights up, and Action Toys appears from the curtain without his shirt on, and the ladies in the front row faint, and the guys bask in his uh chat energy. Okay. I think that's supposed to be two words there, action. But anyways, good to see you, man. And if you haven't already, if you can like and share the stream, that would really help out. That'd be appreciated. Yeah. So that's an entrance. Okay, so we're already at the 9-minute mark, so I should probably go ahead and. All right, so here's what's on tap tonight. I'm gonna probably be doing 6 stories tonight. Um, first story we're going to be doing, don't have an article relating to it, but There has been some coverage on it lately. I'm going to lead in with a with one of the rare pro wrestling stories I do during the week here, as some situations come about from the plane ride from hell. I know that I know I know well I know Solid was aware of it, and I know that Dave, you may have been aware of it. The Toy Bounty Hunter has been covering that a little bit. I guess the recent Vice video from their Dark Side of the Ring um, series talked about the plane ride from hell from back in 2002. We'll be talking a little bit about that a little bit. I'm going to give some commentary on that. Then we got a couple stories abounding in the comics from the comics section. One of them being a follow up to the whole story with Kelly Sue DeConnick yesterday is Destiny Johnson came out and went after people about the apparently the sexist comments towards her. Let me see what else was there as well. Let's see that, and then Chuck Dixon has some things to say about the current state of DC and Marvel, and in the anime side of things, um, those three stories will cover from CBR, which will include. Did I find it? Let's see. One Punch Man manga artist released a new animated short. That's one story we're going to be looking at. Um, Five old school anime gems on Retro Crush. That's another story we're going to be looking at. And then why people were so obsessed with Tenchi Muyo. So that's all that's on tap for tonight. With that being said, let's at least get caught up on some of the things you guys have said. Let's see. There's a legend that if Action points his junket at a lady, her and three generations of her family all become pregnant. Okay, that's an interesting legend. Saw a bit. And yes, even a man. Okay. Anyways, midterm elections are coming up. Expect lots of Me Too just to prime the yeah. SJWs will definitely be on the attack, Dave. I get that. So, anyways, speaking, of course, of Me Too, as it were, let's talk about this first story. Now, granted, I don't have an article to read on this, but I've kind of been aware of it because of because channels like What Culture Wrestling and WrestleMania have covered this. I think even James from We Are Pro Wrestling has probably talked about this a little bit too. I know Toy Bounty Hunters just covered it. Oh, now to give you guys a little bit of background on what I'm going to be talking about here. This incident happened back in 2002. When there were a few wrestlers who were on their way back from the European tour. Among them included like Ric Flair, Rob Van Dam, Brock Lesnar, Kurt Hennig, who was kind of trying to get back in with the company at the time, was on that tour. Dustin Rhodes, Dustin Reynolds, Scott Hall. So basically, what had happened was they had just completed a tour in Europe there, and on the plane ride back to the States, apparently, there was an open bar on the plane, and a bunch of people got drunk and really just acted totally stupid. Basically there were a few things. Some have been some have been established. Other things have been like among the debauchery that was supposedly among the kind of ridiculousness and the debauchery that were apparently reported included, of course, from the more sublime of apparently Dustin serenading his ex-wife, Terry, at the time, and what even toy bounty hunters John had claimed was maybe a feeble attempt to try to win her back. There was an incident where Kurt Hennig and Brock Lesnar had got into a bit of a scuffle, a bit of a wrestling match, and and both of them having amateur backgrounds, of course. Scott Hall was being Scott Hall drunk, you know. Um, and of course, there was another report of Ric Flair running around pretty much just almost completely naked with only his signature ring robe on. And apparently flashing everybody with what he likes to call the helicopter. According to, of course, the Dark Side of the Ring documentary on it, apparently, and this is one of the things that was named in the lawsuit because that the WWE settled back in 2002. So apparently, there was this one flight attendant named Heidi Doyle who has accused Ric Flair of SAing her, of trying to force her to touch his junk. Um, some of the things that came out of this, of course, was um, Rob Van Dam confirmed that he didn't actually force her, but he was trying to get her to so it was a semi confirmation. He was trying to get her to touch his junk, but apparently did not force her. And he has since come out and said he adamantly, very vehemently denies that he ever tried to force anybody to do anything. Now, mind you, as far as we know, in terms of in real life, I don't. We have no evidence to prove that Ric Flair had ever tried to force himself on any woman. Okay. But mind you, there was something that happened, of course, a few years ago on a SmackDown episode. I don't know if you guys were still watching SmackDown at this point. I think it was back in 2016, where during Charlotte's feud with Becky Lynch for the WWE Divas title, I don't know if it's the Divas title, probably the Divas title, Ric Flair did force a kiss on Becky Lynch. Now, mind you, that was an angle. That was probably an angle. It was granted, it was an angle probably in bad taste considering the times. That was an angle. But there are going to be some people there are going to be some people who will think that that was real. So, Dave Mark was just saying here, the founder of Snopes is also getting Me Too'd by his ex-wife, and who was a woman of the night. Mm-hmm. Being a mule doesn't equal sensual. Hey, okay, yeah, yeah. Well, also, and some things that even toy bounty hunters, it shouldn't. Yeah. Um, some things even toy bounty hunters John had pointed out too. There's some stuff that apparently came out about this about the flight stewardess too, in that she's apparently, at least since the incident happened, she's actually gone into some trouble legally, criminally, where she basically committed identity theft and also stole quite a huge amount of money in jewelry. So with that, I would almost speculate that this could be a situation. Again, we don't know for certain what, but even as some people point out too, you know, if she was so traumatized by the experience, why didn't she go? You see, Ric Flair was never criminally charged for anything. Okay, the WWE just settled it to where they didn't want to have to deal with the headache. You know, um, now Ric Flair, being a multiple time former world champion, you could argue that he's kind of up there, in terms of you know being kind of on the rich side. You know, um, and there are people who would try to take advantage of certain situations to try to milk him for everything they could. That's another possibility here. Now, another aspect of this story that came out too is during Vice's documentary, Tommy Dreamer had apparently made some comments that were deemed insensitive, and it actually ended up leading him getting indefinitely suspended from Impact Wrestling where he's a producer right now, producer agent, however you want to say it. He's one of the guys who kind of helps plan out what they do on Impact. He's been indefinitely suspended from that position due to some comments he made during the documentary, in which he was talking about, well, Rick was just kidding around. Rick was just being Rick and all that. Albeit at the time, let's see, 2002, 1949, well, Ric Flair, I think, was in his early 50s. I think he was like 53 at the time, 52, 53. A 52, 53-year-old man running around with only his ring robe on is still considered inappropriate, no matter what company he's in. As Toy Bounty Hunters pointed out. But because Tommy Dreamer was kind of like, you know, making, what they felt was making light of the situation, making light of the flight attendants' accusations, they decided to. So basically, Tommy Dreamer and Ric Flair right now are being, Me Too'd, as it were. You know, but that should be taken into account that, it's kind of funny because what a lot of people may not always understand or remember is that alcohol does affect your brain. It basically kind of weakens that part of your brain that tells you, hey, if I do this, I might get in trouble for it. I might put myself in a position where I could get in trouble for something if I drink this much alcohol. The incident did lead to a couple of firings. Kurt Hennig, who this is about a year, I believe, before he died. But he was trying to come back to the WWE to get work. Scott Hall who was also with the company at the time. Wow, I'm down to one viewer. Hey, you guys still here? Yeah, but yeah, so basically, yeah, so Hennig and Hall were both fired. And it's kind of ironic because they were tag team partners way back in their days in the AWA together. They actually were former AWA World Tag Team Champions. Um, they were fired. I think there were a few others who may have been fined. Um, yeah, it lowers inhibition in moderation. It's not terrible alcohol. Well, yeah, it lowers your inhibitions. But as with anything, if you drink enough of it, it will lower your inhibition to the point to where you almost don't realize, right from wrong, basically. It can lower your inhibitions to the point to where, you know, you like if you're sober right now, you might not even think of touching a woman for fear of that she'll like start screaming ARP or or SA or whatever. But if you drink enough alcohol, that part of you that tells you, "Hey, you better not touch that woman because she's liable to accuse you of something," you get a little braver. You get a little braver. Okay, so you just stroke the back of her neck, and then you give her a hug, even if she doesn't want it. You might, you know, it does lower inhibitions, David. And you lower inhibitions enough, it can get you into trouble. That's my point there. You know. You're right. Alcohol, when drink for most people, you know, for most people, there are some exceptions as there usually is, but for most people, in moderation, alcohol is fine. There are some people who, as the saying goes, can't handle their liquor. Okay, so I should also um, then the morning comes. Yep. Yeah. So basically, though, I just since that's been kind of brought up recently, I had heard about it a little bit over the past few years here, but since it's coming up again because of the Vice video, the episode of the Dark Side Ring that's coming up again, so I figured I'd give some commentary on that. So basically, people got drunk, people did stupid things. Probably wasn't quite as bad as some people want to make it out to be. Um, sometimes people will exaggerate either to push a particular agenda or just to have something exciting to talk about in their lives. Yeah. Um, so that's my overall take on it. So, anyways, so with that now, um, guess we'll go on to now some of the articles. Now that I've talked about that, we're 27 minutes into this, so that's good. All right, so let's get into the articles now. And of course, the first one we're going to look at here, um, got a couple that came out today. I'll look at this one first. This one's kind of a follow up to a story we talked about yesterday. That I guess supposedly is Destiny Johnson right there. That's she's got a tattoo on her collarbone. There it says "Be calm," and then they got her in a word bubble. Or sexist, awful, negative comments. So KGW news reporter Destiny Johnson upset at "quote unquote" sexist comments on Kelly Sue DeConnick YouTube interview. Article by John F. Trent published earlier today. So here we go. KGW news reporter Destiny Johnson is upset about that her 2019 interview with Kelly Sue DeConnick and Matt Fraction is receiving what she claims are "quote unquote" sexist comments. So she was the one who. So I guess this is the girl who. This was a lady who was. This I guess was the lady who was conducting the interview. Then that we talked about yesterday, the one where Kelly Sue DeConnick was basically indicating she seemed to regret. She was commenting on how I guess she was in a way regretting what she had said. Basically, at least my take on it. Johnson interviewed DeConnick and her husband Matt Fraction back in 2019, where the comic book creator lamented the state of the comic book industry. The interview took place just 2 years after DeConnick boldly told readers, "quote If you don't like my politics, don't buy my book," unquote. And that has been talked about ad nauseum for quite a while. Um, Johnson took to Twitter to express her frustration regarding the comments that are being posted on the YouTube video. She wrote, quote, "In the exhausting battle of sexism," oh boy, oh boy, she's really going into it, isn't she? "In comics, my interview with Kelly Sue DeConnick and Matt Fraction is getting ratioed by jerks," unquote. Quote, "It's a great interview with some amazing, thoughtful insights, and I am really thankful they chatted with me. Spread to the right, folks." All right, so yeah, so she was the one who was conducting that interview that we talked about yesterday. Let's see. Johnson added, quote, "Sometimes it's really frustrating to be a woman on the internet and a woman journalist, but I think this pales often to being a woman in comics media. I can't imagine being a writer, creator, artist in this realm, but I know comics can be so amazing and fun and good." Okay, well, there's something that I think most people could agree with her on. Quote, "So I try when I see overwhelming amounts of comments like this to stay positive. But JC, it can't be it can be relentless," unquote. Um, a KGW news reporter tweeted, and her Twitter handle is at Destiny. Destiny Johnson is doing nerd stuff. Next, Johnson questioned, like, what incel hellscape did this end up on? Yeah, that's probably not going to endear her to people. Uh, Chloe's at it again, guys. Let's see. Johnson then took issue with mounting into comics coverage of her interview with DeConnick and Fraction. Quote, "Found this very divisive article that adds nothing to the conversation except back and forth on comments DeConnick makes about worrying for the comic industry and for people who sell comics while asserting that comics will find a way to persist," unquote. Well, yeah, Destiny. Part of the problem is part of the issue there is that Kelly kind of made her own bet on that. Okay, that's the thing people are pointing out. Is Kelly kind of made her own bet on that by making the statement, "Well, if you don't like my politics, don't buy my book. Problem solved." You know, because that's exactly what they did. She made her bed. Now she's got to lie in it. Anyways, or read the I'll be right back, guys. I've got to take care of Chloe. I'll be right back. Hey, Solid, see you there. All right. Anyways, as always, guys, I do appreciate any and all likes and shares. It does help with the algorithm. So if you can do that, that'd be appreciated. Yeah, I saw that. Solid. I'm kind of glad for that too. You might see me on there a bit. In terms of checking him out. I hope he'll someday check out one of my streams. That would be nice. And anyways, and I don't know if you heard me there, solid, but I did talk earlier about the the whole plane ride from hell story. So, anyways, so let's get back to this article here. Then Johnson then specifically tweeted at myself, writing, "quote." I guess this is the writer of this article, John Trent here. Quote, John F. Trent, your reporting on my reporting from 2 years ago has flooded the video with sexist, awful negative comments. Instead of framing a woman who has done a ton for comics this way, you chose this, unquote. Um, Again, Destiny, what I would say to Destiny right there, you know, in response is Kelly Sue made her own bet on this. Okay? She made her own bet on this. Quote, I implore you as a comics journalist to take a different road next time, unquote. In a subsequent tweet, she added, quote, particularly if my name and content are attached, thanks in advance, um, unquote. I responded writing, quote, thanks for the advice. I won't be taking it. Nice one there, Johnny boy. I'm gonna read that again, just in case you guys didn't get it. This is basically how John F. Trent here, the guy who wrote this article right here and wrote the previous article that we're talking about, responded to Miss Johnson there. Quote: "Thank you for the advice. I won't be taking it." Unquote. That's a way of I just joined the stream. Okay. Um. Yeah. Yeah. So basically, he kind of. In response to this, in a moment of pure irony, Johnson echoed DeConnick's own words of, quote, if you don't like my politics, don't buy my book, unquote. That's where the whole thing started. You always have to wonder just how big exactly these SJW's brain cells are. The thing that got Kelly Sue all this attention, all this bad attention in the first place, Destiny echoes it. Like, what? You didn't learn from history there, you little girl? Oh, man. Okay, so moving on here. She wrote, yes. Well, we have different ideologies on inclusivity in comics, so my content isn't really for you. You can refrain from using it in the future. Thanks. Unquote. Well, I mean, he's going to report on it. Okay. If you're going to like push your agenda like that, lady, you got to be able to take the good with the bad, unfortunately. So, as for the claim about being flooded with sexist comments following the publishing of our article, A simple perusal of her YouTube video proves it false. And just as a reminder, the definition of sexism is, quote, prejudice or discrimination based on sex or gender, especially against women and girls, unquote, according to Britannica. The top comment is from 5 months ago before the article was published. So so if you guys, I'm sure you guys know this, but the top comment is usually the most recent comment. Okay, the top comment is unless of course there's a pinned comment. Then usually the pinned comment or pinned comments are um. Excuse me again, guys. Sorry, Chloe's barking again. Be right back. All right. So, thank you guys for the likes and shares. That does help with the the algorithm. So let's continue on with the article here. Okay. So, and I did just explain this about the idea of the top comment, which I think everybody knows. So the top comment is from 5 months ago before the article was published. It reads, quote, gee, thanks, Matt, for getting your wife into comics and ruining all that she touches, unquote. So that was from even before this article came up. So the comments were coming out even before. And again, it's a lot of it in retaliation for her basically saying, for taking the attitude, hey, you don't like my comics, don't buy my book. Problem solved. And that will probably be quoted and requoted ad nauseum for years. It'll be like a specter hanging over Kelly's head for the rest of her life, probably. The next comment from 4 months ago states, if you don't like my politics, don't buy my books, unquote. KSD Aquaman gets canceled due to poor sales. I guess what that person's saying is, well, and KSD, I'm thinking is Kelly Sue DeConnick. She was writing Aquaman. People literally took her advice. They stopped buying her comics because she was opening her mouth and expressing her political opinion. People don't want to hear it. The third top comment from 2 months ago reads, quote, Matt Fraction is failing retailers, or Matt Fraction to failing retailers, envision your own market. Quote, if it can happen in Portland, it can happen anywhere, unquote. Sure, Matt, the city that prides itself on being weird and atypical, KSD, turn your comic book shop into a coffee shop. Great business acumen. Laugh out loud. The fourth comment from 5 months ago says, quote, comic sells down. You say, wonder why. The fifth comment, and the first one that could have been inspired by our article, states, um, quote, Kelly, in smaller quotes, comics are politics, unsmaller quote, a smaller quote, if you don't like my politics, don't buy my book, unsmaller quote. People, smaller quote, okay, smaller quote, unquote, okay, Kelly, smaller quote, comic sales are down, unsmaller quote. I think that should be comic sales, not comic sells. But and then smaller quote, and it worries me, smaller quote, people, um, smaller quote, smaller quote, unquote. You are welcome. Again, this is something that Kelly Sue. This is a bed that she herself made. The next comment states, quote, perhaps people shouldn't be hired on their politics if they can't sell a book. Still unsure to this day why a comic book company would continue to pay someone actively losing money while exacerbating the target audience. I know several people who called this out as it was happening and got ostracized for it. They are doing, unquote. Quote, uh, these guys come across like a couple who can't stand sharing a room together. Like any fight, like they fight constantly and hate each other. Um, it's so awkward around them, reads the next comment. And that, I guess, came from a guy named Sassy Dispatch. And so, let's see. Nerd News with Destiny, YouTube. Another one states Shonen Jump keeps breaking records. Quote, it's not that kids aren't buying comics, they are just not buying the terrible woke ones, unquote. Which I know Yellow Flash has commented several times on. And it's not, and really at this point, it's not even really the kids as much buying comics anymore. It's more like, well, okay, it's probably more like older high school, maybe college age kids, and maybe adults who are more buying comics now. Let's see. Independent comic sales are down. Quote. Independent comic sales are down. Quote. Unless you're selling manga. Unquote. Um, reads another. The next comment states, quote, I wonder when companies stop pretending this is popular and needed and just stop being allergic to profit. When they fire people like this and actually start producing for the people that would buy their products. Let's see. None of these comments are sexist. None of them are prejudiced or discriminate based on sex. They basically criticize the fact of what she says and how she's now lamenting what she's. It's like she made her bed and now she's got to lie in it, and she doesn't like it. When the SJWs realize the filth that they laid out and have to lie in that filth, they don't like it. Nobody likes to lie in your own filth. Okay, nobody does. What these comments do show is that people are willing to criticize Deconic and Fraction for what they said in the interview and what they said in past interviews. Criticizing a person criticizing a person for their ideas and comments is not sexist. Okay, so, and he's right there. Criticizing a person for comments they made or pushing an agenda or anything, that's not sexist. But of course, this is also kind of the whole playing the victim card as well. So, so that's what you got right there. So we're done with that article. So, anyways, let's get ready to move on to the next one then. Should be this one. Let's see where are we at on that. So we're at the 51-minute mark. So we're about halfway through that. All right, so let's see now. All right, so here's the next article we're going to be looking at here. Chuck Dixon, quote, DC and Marvel seem to be in some sort of a suicide pact with themselves to destroy American comics. Article by, unquote, article by John F. Trent, our buddy John Trent again, published earlier today. Famed Batman writer Chuck Dixon recently claimed that DC Comics and Marvel Comics are intentionally attempting to destroy American comics. That's a very interesting statement to say. um, I don't know if somebody would actually argue that they're intentionally doing it or they're just idiots. Well, I guess we'll see what he has to say here. Dixon's comments came in his latest YouTube episode of Ask Chuck Dixon. Dixon was asked by a fan, quote, "What do you think of these big two? Oh wait, what do you think do these big two need to do to save their decline in popularity?" Unquote. And quote, and lastly, what are your thoughts on Comicsgate? Do you think it's a useless movement that's overdoing it or a necessary thing to wake up Marvel DC? Question mark, unquote. The current scribe on Arcaven Comics Something Big and Go Monster Go responded to the question stating, quote, these questions are very much interrelated. So you've got DC and you've got Marvel. They're the big two. They're the big cats in the cage. They're the stars. They're the marquee. And they float all the boats. All of the comic industry goes up and up or down with the fortunes of DC or Marvel. That's that's the just way it is. I think they actually meant to say that's just the way it is. But he continued, I don't see it ever changing, particularly since DC and Marvel seem to be in some sort of suicide pact with themselves to destroy American comics. I'm beginning to believe that they are doing it intentionally. And I don't think in a year from now, DC or Marvel are going to exist as we see them today or as we ever remembered them. Unquote. And I know Yellow Flash has been saying the same thing. I think Yellow Flash has been saying that exact same thing. That maybe within a year or two that DC and Marvel won't be the DC and Marvel we all remember them to be. There's a Witch Stalker comic by, of course, Chuck Dixon and Joe Bennett, who we talked about yesterday. Joe Bennett getting signed on to Archaven. Quote, the parent companies can't keep carrying these comic book companies that simply don't deliver any kind of earnings. And I know in the new economy, as NPR always tells me, um, earnings don't matter. Yeah, right. But they do. They do in the end. You got to pay people. You got to make enough money to pay everybody and keep the lights on, unquote, he asserted. Go, monster, go. Dixon then turned his attention to the first question, saying, quote, what can they do to turn around? Honestly, I think at this point it is too late. They've screwed the pooch on all of this stuff so much. They've chased away so many rumors, um, unquote, I guess. Quote, at this point, if DC and Marvel said, in smaller quotes, well, we're going to go back to doing things the way we used to, unquote, at this point, would you believe them? Because they're certainly said it enough times, unquote, he declared. And of course, we know that because DC has rebooted several times, more in the last few years than anything else. Dixon then proceeded to provide an example. Quote, as the steam ran out of the Ultimates at Marvel, it seemed like every 3 months the companies would say, quote, we're gonna return to more traditional ways of comics. We're gonna do a soft reboot, basically go back to the way we were doing business before, smaller quote. But it turned out to never be true, unquote. Excuse me a moment, guys. I'll be right back here. All right. Anyways, I'm back, and let's see now. Hey, Leto. Thanks for. Hey, Woody. Um. As always, guys, if you can like and share the stream, that'd be appreciated. If you haven't already. Um. Thank you guys for being here. I do appreciate it. Um. So yeah. So, anyways, let's get back to the article here. As for why their promises were never kept, he posited, quote, I think partly because they had chased away the talent or barred the talent from working that could have actually accomplished that could have returned to them to greatness. There's rare exceptions. Dan Jurgens um, continues to do terrific work at DC, but that's a rare exception for the most part. All of the contemporaries of Dan Jurgens, they're not working in comics or they're doing their own thing. Unquote. Yeah, guys like Ethan Van Sciver, who's off doing his own thing. I think Frank Miller was retired. We know Chuck Dixon is over at Arkhaven. Dixon then turned his attention to Comicsgate. Quote, this is where Comicsgate comes in. Because Marvel and DC chased away 70% of their readership, and no new readers came in to replace them because why would they? Comics aren't that interesting. They're not that engaging. Um, they're not that attractive. And they feature characters, for the most part, that people couldn't even recognize anymore because they've either been completely changed or altered in such a way that the general public no longer recognize them. Unquote. This is kind of alluding to the whole pushing the agenda stuff that we've talked ad nauseum about. Quote, so kids going to see a Marvel or DC movie wanted a comic book like those characters. They couldn't even find anything like those characters, so sales cratered. Continue to crater. Death spiral, unquote, he noted. Chuck Dixon's Avalon, which is part of the Arkhaven Alt Hero. Yeah, so part of the Arkhaven lineup. He then questioned, quote, but what happens to all those comic book readers, people like you, people like me, we want to read comics. We don't want to stop just because they suck. Unquote. Quote. So into that gap comes Comicsgate. I don't even like Comicsgate as a term because it started out as a pejorative. And for those of you who don't know what a pejorative means, it basically means a negative descriptor, basically. In other words, what he's saying is Comicsgate is used negatively when describing people of it. Quote, oh, you're part of Comicsgate, unquote, or unsmaller quote, like it's some conspiracy, like we all live in the same house, unquote, he opined. I know Batgoat had mentioned before, like Tim Pool has a bit of a complex where a lot of his people live together in. Tim Pool, the YouTuber. Um, Sorry, I didn't show yesterday. My phone kept, SIM card yesterday. Hey, Solid again. What's up, buddy? Um, hey, Dave and Mike and Toys. Okay, I'm driving to work. Sorry if I don't say. That's okay. We understand. But thank you for being here. And for those of you who just got in, you may notice that the signal is doing great. A little bit of good news. My nephew moved the router downstairs, so it's actually closer to me now. So hopefully won't have any more of those problems that we've been having lately. Anyways, back to the article. Quote, and I don't even know what Comicsgate is. I'm not even sure what Comicsgate means. I'm always included in Comicsgate when they make a list of Comicsgate people. I'm always on it, often near the top, which is why I jokingly say I'm the Jesus of Comicsgate. I was the first. I was blacklisted by the industry and outed as a conservative, unquote, he states succinctly. Dixon then does his best to define Comicsgate. Quote, I'm not even sure what Comicsgate is. It's like this loose affiliation, and it's a very loose affiliation because a lot of Comicsgate people don't like each other. As we've noted here, thanks in large part to tobacco, some of the issues that have come up between Vox Day and EVS in the past, and issues between like EVS and Doug Tenaple. So um, let's see. But what it is a bunch of successful pros and some amateurs who are now pro very much, who through crowdfunding or whatever other means created their own comics, did away with the gatekeepers, said in smaller quotes, "Hey, we don't need the big two," and reached out to that underserved comic book audience that no longer read DC and Marvel comics, unquote. Quote, in DC and Marvel, their editorship and their creator people deeply resent this. And so they make it into something political. It's not accident that the majority of Consgate people or the majority of these new independent creators tend to be conservative, because so many of them no longer work for the big two because they were blacklisted, unquote, says the creator of Vane. The Arkhaven Comics writer then stated, quote, "So what were they supposed to do? They supposed to go become greeters at Walmart?" Yeah, that's what I'm pretty sure that's what a lot of these woke comic pros, that's exactly what they wanted to do them to do. They wanted them to That's exactly what they want to do, or worse, if you get what I mean. Or they find a way to keep doing what it is they do best, which is create comics. And we know the names Billy Tucci, Ethan Van Sciver, Graham Nolan, Richard Meyer. These guys have been incredibly successful. There's others as well. Brian Pulido. Brian Pulido is a rock star of crowdfunding, working outside the system. Of course, Brian Pulido has always worked outside the system. He's always found a way, unquote. Dixon continued, so that's what Comicsgate is. And I find it funny that some of the big critics of Comicsgate tried to do what the quote unquote Comicsgate people were doing, and they fell flat on their faces, because they didn't seem to understand it. They mistook it for a political movement. It's not really a movement. It's not like we all got together in a castle somewhere and say, quote, "Well, you are going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and you're going to do," unquote. Quote, "This was organic. This was people making their own efforts, figuring out how to do the comics they wanted to do, figuring out how to continue their careers, figuring out how to keep food on the table for their families, and also to serve their fans, the people who had supported them all these years and didn't want them to go away," he detailed. Unquote, he detailed. Is from anti Altero Q. That. Later, Dixon states, so like I said, Comicsgate was a pejorative. It's an insult. But some of the Comicsgate people embraced it like this is a badge of honor, which is true. That's pretty much what they've done. I don't really see it that way. I just think it's kind of a dumb term. I don't think it accurately describes what's going on. I see it more as an independent creator revolution, a creator owned revolution. After noting his own role in Comicsgate or the creator revolution with his contributions to Archaven and Arctoons, Dixon addressed the question about waking up Marvel and DC. He said, quote, as far as waking up Marvel and DC, let them sleep. Let them stay asleep, unquote. Yeah, because as they crash and burn, that opens more doors for the independent creators. What do you make of Dixon's analysis on the comic book industry and specifically what's going on at Marvel and DC Comics? What about his comments on Comicsgate? So there we go. So we're done with those. We got 3 more articles on. So let's see what you guys are saying here. We're past the hour mark already. Um, that's a good nephew. Yeah. Well, I mean, um, that definitely helped Woody. I don't know if he was doing it just simply because of me or because of me. Maybe they finally realized it was, well, my sister told me the other day they were planning on moving the office downstairs at some point, which would have included the router. They just, I guess, decided to move the router down sooner. So, which probably makes more sense. Of course, this also means I'm not going to have to go up to the attic anymore because the router is a lot closer um, to me now. The router where it is now, I think, is about. It's I think it may even be closer than it was when I'd go upstairs to do the streams when we'd have problems. So I may have actually have a pretty strong signal here. So anyways, let's get ready to move on to the next set of articles here. Anime articles. Right, so this will be the first one here. All right, so and I do thank you guys for the likes and the shares. Um, it does help with the algorithm. Um, so with that, let's continue on with the next article here, as we're already at an hour and 13 minutes. So making good time, it would seem. So. One Punch Man manga artist releases new animated short. One Punch Man artist Yusuke Murata um, directed and shared a new anime short starring Saitama and his attempt to score some discount meat. Need that protein to power that punch. By Michael Lacerna, published 11 hours ago. And there's Saitama right there. Excuse me a moment, guys, before I continue on with this article. Got to go off camera here for a quick moment. I'll be right back. You have to be careful with that discount me. What are you speaking from experience there, Woody? Uh, all right. So let's get back. Let's get to this article then. Um, a new One Punch Man anime short has made its way online. The new animated short was directed and released by Yusuke Murata, the artist for the One Punch Man manga. Murata released the short through his Twitter account as an apology for recent delays in the release of the manga. A translated version of his tweet reads, quote, I'm sorry to have kept you waiting. The latest story update on to One Punch Man has been delayed due to various circumstances. Please wait just a little bit longer. Please look at the short animations I made with my own hands. Unquote. That's kind of cool. He's like, he understands his fans are waiting patiently, and so to thank them for their patience, he decided to do some anime shorts for them. Kind of cool. The new short was produced by Murata's team, Village Studio. It depicts Saitama casually defeating a monster, only to discover an advertisement for a 1 yen, roughly 1 cent United States meat clearance sale. Wow, wow. And I can see Woody's probably saying, "Yeah, be careful of that meat." Yeah, um, that is quite a discount. But is it worth it? Saitama then races across the city in order to get to the grocery sale in time, but is delayed by numerous obstacles and hazards. The silent short also features cameo appearances from a few of the other characters from the series. In addition to his work on One Punch Man, Murata is also known as the artist on the popular football manga Ice Shield 21, which was written by Riichiro Inagaki. Murata has also worked with American comics publisher Marvel on several occasions and was previously commissioned by the company to create variant covers for Amazing Spider Man, Spider Island, and Spider Verse. One Punch Man originally debuted in 2009 as a self published webcomic by the artist known as One, who would also later go on to create Mob Psycho 100. The series was remade into a print manga in 2012 by Murata. The webcomic has now been viewed more than 8 million times, while the manga remake has more than 30 million copies in circulation. An anime adaptation of One's work was released in 2015 and was produced by Death Note studio Madhouse. The series was broadcast on Cartoon Network's Toonami block in 2016. We received a second season in 2019. The series was also adapted into a video game that was released on the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Windows PCs in 2020. Later that same year, Sony Pictures announced that it's producing a live action adaptation of the series, which will be written by Jumanji Welcome to the Next Level writers Scott Rosenberg and Jeff Pinkner. The series tells the story of Saitama, a bald hero who has the ability to defeat any enemy with a single punch. Despite his incredible power, Saitama is given a low rank by the Hero Association, a governing body that manages the world's superheroes due to him scoring poorly on the organization's written test. So basically, the big brawn, little brain type hero is what he is. The One Punch Man anime is currently available for streaming through Netflix, Hulu, and Crunchyroll. The manga is localized in English and distributed internationally by Viz Media. Oh, there we go with that one. All right, just give me a sec. I'll be right back. All right, oh yeah, okay. So getting ready to move on to the next article here. Oh, what? Everybody took off on me now? ah. 5 old school anime gems on Retro Crush. From action and sci fi to comedy and horror, these 5 anime on Retro Crush, from memories to ringing bell, are classics every anime fan should watch. Article by Ruben Barron, published 9 hours ago. But what they're talking about here, a lot of these look like they're really from back in the maybe as far back as the 70s. Let's see what this has to say. In a crowded marketplace for streaming services, Retro Crush stands out for its library comprised mostly of older anime series and movies. All available to stream legally and for free, many of these anime classics are huge hits in the early years of American anime fandom, but fell out of print and into obscurity before having their licenses rescued by companies like Discotek. Other classics never came to the States legally back in the day and have only become available recently, allowing fans to finally fill in the gaps in their knowledge of anime history. There are many old school anime greats to explore on Retro Crush. However, for those seeking specific recommendations, the following 5 gems listed in chronological order of release are great places to start whether you're seeking action, sci fi, comedy, or the cuddliest sense of pain and despair ever. These anime are ones that any fan interested in the medium's history should check out. Ringing Bell. That's Masami Hata's 1978 anime film Ringing Bell certainly looks like something viewers would expect from Sanrio, the merchandising company behind Hello Kitty. However, the actual movie is way darker than its cutesy character designs and family friendly pedigree would suggest. Things start off upsetting enough when the main character, an adorable little lamb named Churin, witnesses his mother being eaten by a wolf. Whoa. The plot only gets darker from there as Chirin seeks revenge and decides to become as strong as a wolf himself. Whoa. Running a brisk 47 minutes without a single moment of uplift amidst the story's increasing parade of misery, Ringing Bell is a downright bizarre and utterly unforgettable viewing experience that doesn't overstay its welcome. The disjoint between the film's style and substance is effectively handled. Just be sure not to let little kids watch this unless you're ready for some very difficult conversations. Yeah. Project ACO. Absolutely legendary among anime fans of a certain age, yet widely overlooked by younger generations, Project ACO is one of the wildest action comedies of the early 80s. Excuse me, guys, gotta go get Chloe. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Oh, let's see. So let's see, where were we when I was last? It's filled with both exceptional animation and wacky pop culture parodies. The titular character, Aiko, is a super strong high school girl implied to be the daughter of Superman and Wonder Woman. She fights with her wealthy classmate, Biko, over the affections of innocent Siko, who is secretly an alien princess from a race of all female aliens invading Earth. Originally planned as an installment of Cream Island hentai series of the Cream Islands, okay, but deemed so funny and high quality as to warrant its own mainstream non-pornographic theatrical release, the 1986 Project ACO feature film received three shorter theatrical films as sequels. All four installments in the main series are streaming on RetroCrush. First film will also receive a 4K Blu-ray remaster from Discotech, which is scheduled for sale this December. Otaku no Video. Those interested in the history of the Gainax animation studio and or Japanese otaku culture need to make time to watch Otaku no Video if they haven't already. This two-part OVA, released in 1991, combines anime and live-action segments. The anime story follows a budding geek's quest to become the Oda King, quote unquote, the ultimate otaku, and build an otaku run model and anime empire not dissimilar to Gainax's own ambitions. The live action scenes feature mockumentary interviews with anonymous real life otaku, all of whom are confirmed or suspected to be Gainax employees, including Neon Genesis Evangelion director Hideaki Anno. Sounds a little Walt Disney ish. Sounds kind of similar to what Walt Disney did. I remember Walt Disney present some of the Walt Disney present specials and shows and all that. Hey, hey, with a monkey. People say we monkey around, and we'll just keep on singing. Won't let anybody take us down. Well, it's time to be friendly. Cream lemon, huh? Yep. Okay, let's see. Otago no Video was made in the aftermath of the arrest of Tsutomu Miyazaki, a serial killer whose horrific crimes the media decided to blame on anime and manga. Being an otaku wasn't exactly socially acceptable before the Miyazaki murders, but in the late 80s and early 90s, anti otaku stigma was stronger than ever in Japan. Otaku no Video, with its mocking but ultimately loving portrayal of anime fandom, served to help reclaim otaku as a badge of honor rather than an insult, or as we previously read, as a pejorative. Memories. The 1995 anthology movie Memories, executive produced by Akira creator Katsuhiro Otomo, contains three short films, each incredibly impressive and distinctive works of animation. The first segment, quote, Magnetic Rose, unquote, is the most famous of the three, and for good reason. Directed by master animator Koji Morimoto and written by a young Satoshi Kon, this mind bending sci fi story follows a pair of astronauts responding to a distress signal who find themselves traveling into the AI recreated memories of a dead opera singer. Little Ghost in the Shell feel there for you. Quote, Stink Bomb, unquote, directed by the Seven Deadly Sins Tensai Okamura and written by Otomo himself, is a more comedic story about a scientist who turns into a smelly bioweapon after accidentally taking some experimental pills. Um, the final short, quote, Cannon Fodder, unquote, is both written and directed by Otomo and is a stunning dialogue free exploration of military propaganda in a dystopian future, animated as if it were one continuous 22-minute short. Martian Successor Nadesico. This is a pretty interesting one, too. I've seen this one. Premiering in 1996, Martian Successor Nadesico was part of the post Evangelion boom in mecha anime. However, whereas other late 90s mecha series tended to follow Evangelion's lead in their more serious and esoteric storytelling, Nadesico was first and foremost a comedic celebration of older super mecha anime. While the story of a war between Earth and the quote unquote Jovian lizards Jovian means from Jupiter, basically, just for those who don't know. Provides stakes and drama. The darkness is counterbalanced by a cast of wacky characters who'd rather be watching their favorite mecha anime, Geki Gonger 3, and actually piloting their giant robots. So they'd actually be rather watching mecha anime than being in a mecha anime. That's interesting. Retro Crush is streaming both the original 26 episode series and the 1998 movie sequel, Martian successor Nadesico, the motion picture, Prince of Darkness. However, unlike the original series, the movie relies heavily on background knowledge from the show's Sega Saturn video game spin off in order to make any sense. It is therefore severely lacking as a follow up to the TV anime's tone and storyline. So we got one more article to go. I think we are still making pretty good time here. Yeah, this one right here. All right, so we're at hour 38. So yeah, we should be. We're making excellent time here. This is the last main article. Then we'll probably start to wrap up right after this. So here we go. Why were we all so obsessed with Tenchi Muyo? Tenchi Muyo was once the poster child for the harem anime boom, but now that the dust has cleared, is it still as good? I would say yeah. I haven't watched it recently, but I have watched it. I would say that yes, it is. It's actually a pretty fun anime to watch. If you haven't watched Tenchi Muyo, any of the Tenchi Muyo series, I would recommend it highly. It's a very funny harem anime by Timothy Donahue, published 5 hours ago. Tenchi Muyo is still in many anime fans' eyes the first and last name in harem anime, for better or worse. It helped jumpstart the popularity of the genre, which in the 2000s dominated anime, much to the chagrin of many SJWs, mind you. As harem finally began to die down in popularity, so too did the Tenchi Muyo franchise, which is no longer quite as ubiquitous. Beginning with a popular OVA, the series was also broadcast on Toonami, pushing anime to a generation of kids. That OVA was Tenchi Muyo Ryooki. Um, let's see. The series is now almost 3 decades old, making it the perfect time to look back on how it got so popular and what became of it. What was Tenchi Muyo? And what do you want to be Tenchi right there? Look, got two beautiful girls there all over him. Got a few others like looking at him like they want him too. Why don't you want to be in the center of that? The franchise began with 1992's Tenchi Muyo Ryooki, which was a three-part OVA. The story involves the eponymous Tenchi, a teenager who releases a sword that his grandfather supposedly used to seal a demon. This demon was actually an alien woman named Ryoko, who takes a liking to Tenchi after he saves her. Deciding to live with Tenchi, Ryoko is soon joined by several other alien women who all develop an attraction for the new young male roommate. For their guys, this is like our dream come true, isn't it? You have like 3 to 5 women who all want you, and they're all very different in many ways. Hmm. The OVA was a huge success, eventually being aired in a heavily edited format on Cartoon Network's Toonami programming block. It's currently available on Crunchyroll for streaming and was succeeded by several movies and spin-offs. These included Tenchi Universe, Tenchi Muyo GXP, and Love Tenchi Muyo. I know Tenchi Universe and Tenchi in Tokyo were part of Toonami for a while there. Tenchi Muyo GXP was actually produced and distributed by Funimation. And they did cast many of the. While these series all are tentatively in the same universe, there are several noteworthy differences between the events shown in the movies and TV shows. However, as a whole, the franchise formed the base of a larger then oncoming wave of harem anime on that one that didn't recede until years later. What happened to Tenchi Muyo? Tenchi Muyo was massively popular, largely thanks to its combination of comedy and beautiful women, all of whom seemed to hopelessly pine after Tenchi. Every guy's dream, right? Their colorful, unique designs quickly became iconic, especially in the then burgeoning American anime fandom. Given the popularity of Tenchi Muyo, the boom of imitators was inevitable. Production companies smelled blood in the water, and harem anime after harem anime hit the market in rapid succession, eventually coming to dominate the medium, not unlike how isekai does today, even being a genre that often capitalizes on harem tropes. Yeah. However, harem burnout wasn't the only reason for Tenchi Muyo's fall from grace. The franchise began spawning new micro continuities with later entries, starting with Tenchi in Tokyo. Many assumed it to be a sequel to the previous productions, but it was actually a brand new timeline. It didn't help that it generally wasn't seen as being up to par with the previous series. Tenchi Forever continued this downward trend, failing to please fans with its darker, more serious story rather than relying on the franchise's comedy. Another OVA tried to recapture the magic, but it only left tons of unanswered questions. Since then, the franchise has limped along and squirted out new stories, but has ultimately failed to recapture the acclaim of the success of its early days. So there you go. So that's it for the main stories tonight. All right, guys. Well, we're at the hour and 46 mark here. Say we made very good time tonight. So, I think it would be a good time to start wrapping things up. Are you guys ready for this day in each history? Is there anybody else even here, or am I the only one here? Well, it looks like there is at least one other person here, it looks like. So, are you guys ready for this day in each history? Nietzsche. All right, Woody. So let me just review here real quick. The 9 and 1, 16. All right. Okay. So today being Thursday, September the 23rd. Um, Still niching after all these years. Yeah. Still niching after all these years. All right. So today being Thursday, September 23rd, 2021, let's take a look back at this day in Nietzsche history. And we're actually going to start off with a bit of a sadder note, as it were. As on this day, 25 years ago today, back in 1996, one half of the, one of the guys who would use the pseudonym, one of the manga artists who would use the pseudonym Fujiko Fujio, in this case Fujiko F. Fujio, real name Hiroshi um, Hiroshi Fujimoto, passed away on this date at the age of 62. On this date, back in 1996, 25 years ago today, Fujiko F. Fujio, real name Hiroshi Fujimoto, passed away at the age of 62. He was a manga artist, best known for such works as Doraemon, Ninja Tori-kun, Parmen, Obake, no Kitero, a few others. But I think Doraemon's the only one I think most people would know anyways. So on this date, 25 years ago today, Hiroshi Fujimoto passed away at the age of 62. Uh, Kind of an older manga artist back then. So moving on to the next next piece in each history here. As on this date, 20 years ago today, let's see, from the Million Arena in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, WWE held its fourth Unforgiven pay-per-view on this night. So on this date, 20 years ago tonight, from the Million Arena in Pittsburgh, WWE held its fourth Unforgiven pay-per-view. And on the card, saw in the main event, Kurt Angle defeated Stone Cold Steve Austin for the WWF Championship. Rhino defeated Tajiri for the United States Heavyweight Championship. The Rock retained the WCW World Heavyweight Championship in a handicap match versus Booker T and Shane McMahon. Rob Van Dam beat Chris Jericho for the Hardcore Championship, the WWF Hardcore Championship. The Brothers of Destruction retained the WCW World Tag Team Championship from Chronic, Brian Clark and Brian Adams. Brian Adams, you guys would remember as Crush, wrestler known as Crush. Brian Clark wrestled previously in the WWF as Adam Bomb. So Christian would defeat Edge for the Intercontinental Championship. Perry Saturn defeated Raven. Dudley Boys defeated Big Show and Spike Dudley and Lance Storm and Hurricane and the Hardy Boys to retain the WWF Tag Team Championship in a fatal four-way. And the Sunday Night Heat match for the night was Billy Gunn versus Tommy Dreamer. So that on this date, 2001, the fourth Unforgiven event put on by the WWE from the Mellon Arena in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I think Nick's taking a night off tonight, it would seem, because I haven't seen any notification on his. So, anyways, moving on to the next piece in each history. On this date, 12 years ago today, in 2009, the 515th issue of Uncanny X-Men went on sale on this date from Marvel Comics. In the story Nation X Chapter 1, was written by Matt Fraction, who we talked about earlier, the husband of Kelly Sue DeConnick. Penciled by Greg Land, inked by Jay Leshian, Joe Magna did the lettering, and then Justin Ponser did the coloring. So on this date, 12 years ago today, the 515th issue of Uncanny X-Men went on sale on this date. And finally, the last piece in each history. On this date, 5 years ago today, in 2016, the Netflix animated series VeggieTales in the House would finish its run on Netflix. So, the Netflix animated series VeggieTales in the House would complete its run on this date in 2016, 5 years ago today. So there you go, folks. That's all for each history. I thank everybody for being here. I thank you guys for all the likes and shares. I do appreciate it. Don't forget, tomorrow night we'll be doing, of course, our historical comic retrospect. I'll be sending a link to Batgoat around midday tomorrow. Hopefully he'll be able to make it. Didn't see him here tonight, but he may have fallen asleep or have it. Let's see. Tomorrow night, we'll be looking at the comics that went on sale in May of 1938 from Dell Comics. We'll be looking at Crackerjack Funnies #1 and Popular Comics #30. So until then, guys, thank you again for being here, and I hope to see you all back here tomorrow night. Bye!